Welcome to the Deep Dive, the show that pulls out the core insights from, well, some pretty deep research so you can bypass the filler and get straight to being well informed.
And today, we are tackling a massive, almost an intractable problem in the corporate world.
Major organizational transformation.
It really is the big white whale of business.
Yeah.
Whether you call it restructuring, re-engineering, pivoting, the statistics are just brutal. Our sources show that something like 70% of these big change efforts fail. They just stall out.
And what's really wild is that the blueprint we're looking at today, the systematic approach, is probably more vital now than when it was written.
Oh, absolutely. The speed of the market of disruption is just accelerating. The window you have to adapt is getting smaller and smaller.
So that's our mission for this deep dive. We want to distill that core wisdom into a systematic 8-stage roadmap. It's not just about what to change, but the sequence, right? How to start, sustain, and then anchor it.
Exactly. And before we even get to stage one, we have to talk about the foundational problem. The reason so much of this fails from the get-go.
It's the difference between leadership and management.
That is the critical distinction. I mean, management is there to maintain efficiency, keep things running smoothly, enforce the status quo.
Keep the lights on.
Right. But leadership is about driving transformation. It's about pointing the way forward, often into the unknown. And so many organizations become, as the source material says, overmanaged and underled.
And that mindset, that bias for stability over what might be a necessary revolution, that's what kills change before it even starts.
Is the silent killer.
Okay, so let's unpack the forces that are making this kind of change. Well, mandatory. We all feel the world moving fast, but what are the specific tectonic shifts here?
It's not just that it's moving fast, it's that the barriers that used to protect businesses have just collapsed. There are 4 massive external forces. The first is, of course, technological change. Faster communication, cheap data, better transport.
It connects everyone instantly, and that combines with the second force you mentioned, the international economic integration. So fewer tariffs, global capital flows.
You've basically eliminated geographic safety.
A startup in Singapore can now go head-to-head with a Fortune 500 company in Chicago overnight.
Precisely. Then the third force is the maturation of developed markets. So you have slower domestic growth, which forces companies to look abroad, while at the same time, aggressive global exporters are coming right to their home turf.
And then the geopolitical shifts, of course. Post-Cold War, you see this huge wave of privatization around the world.
So you add those 4 things together, and for any large company, this kind of large-scale change isn't, a nice-to-have for success. It's mandatory for survival.
It creates bigger threats, more competition, more speed, but also bigger opportunities, right? Huge new markets.
Exactly. And to do either survive or capitalize, you have to overcome this incredible internal inertia. Decades of success can build a very powerful don't-change-anything culture.
Which brings us to the solution, the 8-stage process. And you made a key point earlier. This isn't a buffet. You can't just pick and choose.
Absolutely not. You can't skip stage 1 because it feels a little uncomfortable. It's a deliberate sequence, and each stage is designed to build the power and the emotional momentum you need.
And each stage directly counters one of the 8 fundamental errors that cause these efforts to fail.
Yeah, you can think of it in phases. Steps 1 to 4 are about defrosting the status quo, breaking it down.
And then 5 through 7 introduce the new stuff, and stage 8 locks it into the culture. So let's start with what sounds like the hardest part, lighting that initial fire.
Stage 1, establishing a sense of urgency.
The research is so clear on this. Complacency is the monster you have to slay first. And it says even smart, experienced leaders fail right here. Why is that so hard?
Because complacency has so many subtle sources. It's not always a big, obvious crisis. Sometimes it's just a slow, comfortable decline that the data hasn't screamed about yet.
Or it's the environment. You mentioned the subliminal message.
Yes. The lavish corporate headquarters. It sends this subconscious signal. We are rich, relax. And that completely overrides some memo from the CEO about needing to tighten our belt.
Or the kill the messenger culture. Bad news just never makes it to the top floor.
Which guarantees that the people with the most power think everything's fine. So to create true urgency, you can't just do modest things. You need bold, almost theatrical moves.
So, not just a new mission statement.
Definitely not. The classic example is selling off the corporate Air Force.
Yeah.
You eliminate that obvious excess and shows everyone the good old days are over. Or you set performance targets so high they simply can't be met by doing business as usual. You are deliberately creating a sense of crisis.
But wait a minute, doesn't that just create fear? If you manufacture a crisis or get rid of perks, aren't you just creating resentment and killing the trust you're going to need later?
That's the tightrope. It's a great question. It's not about creating panic. It's about removing comfort and then bombarding people with external data. Here's how our competitors are beating us. Here's what our customers are really saying.
So you're forcing the reality of the external threat into the building.
Yes. The threat isn't me, the CEO. The threat is out there, and the only way we survive is by changing together.
Okay. So once that difficult reality check is established, we move to stage 2, creating the guiding coalition. The mistake here is relying on the lone hero, right?
The Lone Ranger leader, or worse, a weak committee, a task force with no real power. Modern organizations are just too complex for one person.
So the coalition needs two things: power and unity.
Power means you need key line managers, the people who actually control budgets and people, not just staff officers who can advise. They have to have skin in the game.
And the unity piece. Getting a room full of powerful executives, all with their own big egos and priorities, to work as a team. That sounds like a nightmare.
It is, which is why the sources talk about using carefully planned off-site meetings. You combine the serious intellectual work analyzing the data with difficult bonding activities.
It's mountain climbing or something.
Yeah, things that force interdependence. The goal is to build enough trust so they can get past the inevitable conflicts, the internal politics, and align on the bigger picture.
Okay, so the team is unified. That brings us to stage 3, developing a vision and strategy. This is where you see the 4-inch thick binders come out.
Oh, we've all seen them. The massive notebooks filled with goals and deadlines that they're uninspiring. They alienate people. A true vision has to be the opposite of that.
The research gives us 3 key characteristics. First, it has to be imaginable. You need to be able to paint a clear picture of the future.
Second, desirable. And this is key. It has to appeal to the long-term interests of all the stakeholders. Customers, employees, stockholders. It can't just be a weak compromise. It has to serve everyone well.
And this is where you tackle those big strategic paradoxes, like can we be both high quality and low cost?
Your vision has to show how that's possible, which leads to the third point. It has to be feasible. It needs a realistic strategy behind it, a plan for how you'll actually get there.
The rule of thumb is great. If you can't explain your vision in 5 minutes and get someone interested, you need to go back to the drawing board.
It has to pass the elevator test. And once it does, you're immediately into stage 4.
Yeah.
Communicating the change vision. And the biggest mistake here is just not doing it enough.
Under-communicating. The coalition spends months hammering out this vision, and then they just assume everyone else will get it in one email.
They won't. You have to keep it simple, jargon-free. Use metaphors that stick. Instead of some complex description, you say, we're going to make fewer Fiats and more Mercedes.
I love the other one. Becoming a customer-friendly Tyrannosaurus Rex instead of a slow elephant. It's visual.
It is, and you have to use every form you have. Speeches, memos, informal chats. The research suggests executives should pledge to link every conversation back to the vision 4 times a day.
4 times a day. Wow. I mean, that sounds a little like indoctrination.
Yeah.
Is there a risk of message fatigue?
There is, but only if the words don't match the actions. The repetition is necessary to cut through the noise. But you're right, the most powerful communication tool is, by far, your deeds.
Actions speak louder than town halls.
1,000,000 times louder. If you're preaching cost-cutting but executives are still flying first class, the entire effort loses credibility instantly.
So once the message is out there and it's credible, we hit stage 5, empowering broad-based action. This is where employees get it, they want to help, but they feel boxed in.
Exactly. They run into real systemic barriers. We can break them down into 4 main obstacles.
Okay.
First, structures. You're the functional silos that fragment resources and authority.
Yeah.
They stop the cross-functional teams you need from ever getting off the ground.
Second would be skills. People just don't have the training for the new way of working. Or maybe more importantly, the right attitude. You can't just flip a switch and turn a rule follower into a risk taker.
And third, the systems. Your HR systems are a huge one. Performance reviews, compensation. They're often perfectly designed to reward the status quo. They reward people for not making mistakes, not for the risk-taking the new vision requires.
And the fourth barrier, which sounds the most frustrating, is supervisors. The bosses who just refuse to adapt or even actively undermine the change.
The source material calls one guy the Rock because he was so immovable.
The blockers.
Yes. And you have to deal with them. You confront them, and if they won't change, you have to move them. One powerful blocker can stop the entire thing.
So once you've cleared the path, you need to show it's working. That's stage 6, generating short-term wins. The mistake is just hoping they happen.
You have to plan for them. And they have to be visible and unambiguous. We're not talking about a good meeting. We're talking a major measurable dip in inventory or a huge spike in customer retention.
Something intangible.
Something that proves the sacrifice is worth it. It rewards the people doing the work, and it completely undermines the cynics who are saying, I told you this would never work.
And you use the credibility from those wins to fuel stage 7, consolidating gains and producing more change. And the classic mistake here is just declaring victory way too early.
I've seen it happen. You hit a couple of big targets, the stock price bumps up, and everyone just exhales. They stop pushing
And then everything slides backward.
immediately. The forces of tradition are so powerful. The source uses this great analogy. It's like rearranging furniture where everything is connected by steel cables. If you just move one chair and then stop, the cable just pull it right back to where it was.
So you have to use that credibility from the early wins to go bigger, to launch more projects.
More and bigger projects. Stage 7 is often about running 10 or 20 complex projects at the same time. And this is where that leadership and management distinction comes back.
Oh.
Senior management has to provide the leadership, the shared purpose, the vision, while ruthlessly delegating the management, the coordination of all those projects, way down the hierarchy.
Which finally brings us to the end game, stage 8, anchoring new approaches in the culture. And the insight here is huge. Culture change comes last, not first.
You cannot mandate a new culture. You have to earn it. The new ways of working have to produce visible, undeniable success first. Only then can you start weaving them into the fabric of the organization.
And you have to be explicit about it. You have to connect the dots. We behave this way, and it led to this great result.
I love that example of the CEO who held a ceremony, a eulogy, really, for the old, thick procedure manuals.
Yes.
He respectfully acknowledged how they served the company in the past, but then he linked their burial to the great results they were getting from the new, more flexible approach. That kind of symbolic act is what makes it stick.
Looking forward, then, the model for the 21st century organization is just completely different. It's not bureaucratic or centralized.
It's flat, it's fast, it's externally focused, and crucially, it has to maintain a persistent sense of urgency. Not panic, but zero complacency, ever.
A structure that basically depends on everyone at every level being a lifelong learner. And this connects everything back to the individual, doesn't it?
That's the key. Organizational survival depends on individual capacity for change. The research gives this incredible illustration, the compounding effect of skill growth.
Let's talk about Fran and Janice.
Okay, so if Fran grows her skills at 6% a year, just 5% more than her colleague Janice at 1%, the difference over 20 years is it's staggering. Fran ends up with 321 units of capability, while Janice has 122.
It's the power of compounding. That small, consistent, daily effort creates this huge separation over time.
And these lifelong learners, the Frans of the world, they have specific habits.
Wow.
They take risks, they reflect, they actively ask for negative feedback, and they actually listen to it.
They embrace the short-term pain and discomfort for that long-term growth.
The organization can build the framework, but the individual has to accept the discomfort. That 6% growth is not comfortable. It requires embracing criticism and failure over and over again.
So at the end of the day, what does this all mean? Transforming an organization is a marathon. It demands this relentless, systematic effort across all 8 stages, driven by real leadership. It means facing massive discomfort.
That's the takeaway, and maybe we can end with this thought.
Yeah.
Let's link that huge organizational failure rate, that 70% back to you, the listener. If success requires that compounded 6% annual growth, what's your personal urgency gap? What comfortable, risk-averse habit are you clinging to today that's stopping that growth?
What's the small daily effort you could make that would turn into massive capability in 5 years?
That's the challenge, right? The biggest roadblock to change isn't the competition, it's the comfort we're seeking right now.
A powerful thought to end on. If you found yourself taking notes during this, you're probably already on that 6% path. We really appreciate you joining us, and we'll catch you next time for the deep dive.